Jim Davis.
BBC Radio Leicester.
Next, though, we're going to meet quite an incredible young man. After a devastating accident, he was, battling for his life. And when every single specialist said the best thing to do was to switch off his life support, one Leicester doctor said no. And they both join me in a moment to tell us their incredible story. After this, from Phil Collins now at BBC Radio Leicester. You Can't Hurry Love at BBC Radio Leicester on this lovely Tuesday morning this morning, 10th of April today. We'll get the very latest from our weather centre for you in a few minutes' time, and I hope you had a fantastic Easter break, whatever you got up to. Next, though, we're going to meet quite an incredible young man. After a devastating accident, he was, battling for his life. And when every single specialist said the best thing to do was to switch off his life support, one Leicester doctor said no. And they both join me in a moment to tell us their incredible story. BBC Radio Leicester on this lovely Tuesday morning this morning, 10th of April today. We'll get the very latest from our weather centre for you in a few minutes' time. And I hope you had a fantastic Easter break, whatever you got up to. Next this morning, I'd like to introduce you to a remarkable young man. Stephen Thorpe is from Kenilworth, just south of Leicestershire, of course, in our neighbouring Warwickshire. Having completed his GCSE courses, Stephen was set on a business career. He has a passion for accounting and economics and business studies, so off he went to continue learning, determined to become the next Lord Sugar. But on the 1st of February 2008, Stephen's life took a dramatic turn when he was involved in a serious road traffic accident. During the first week after the crash, Stephen's family were informed twice that he wasn't going to make it. His severe head injuries left every single specialist convinced that he wouldn't survive, and the best thing to do would be to switch off his life support. Well then, thanks to the intervention of Stephen's father's employers, a tiny ray of light beamed into that blackness in the form of the equally remarkable Dr. Julia Piper from Stonygate, right here in Leicester. And it's a great pleasure to welcome both of you to the studio this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Stephen, let me start with you. I mean, you've literally been right back to the brink, haven't you? And back again. I can't imagine how that must feel for you. Can you perhaps describe some of the key ways your life has changed since the accident?
Biggest impact was the loss of the use of my arm. Things have been very difficult at times, but something that I've just had to learn to cope and deal with, which, as I say, at times has been difficult. But every day is different, and I find that just keeping a positive mind and thriving to do well has helped me get through all the days.
As I highlighted there, I mean, the accident was 4 years ago. Some of that drive has helped you pull through in your recovery.
Yes, when I was back at sixth form, I used to I'd always wanted to be a salesman. Accountancy I'd had thought of previous to that, which I'm now currently doing.
Okay.
But I'd always wanted to be a salesman.
Let's just go back to the accident for a moment, because at the time you had no idea, did you, how bad things really were? Naturally, you were unconscious for large portions of that time. Really, you had no idea in those initial weeks.
My time in hospital I wasn't really with it due to the high doses of morphine and other types of medicine the doctors had been giving me. So I couldn't really remember much to what was going on, but to think back and now to what had actually happened and what my friends and family and people around me had actually gone through, it is hard to describe, really, because I can't actually picture me being there. Because
it just must be a complete haze to you, really. Julia, let me ask you how you got involved with Stephen and his story. What happened there?
Yeah, certainly, Jim. Well, one evening I had a call from Stephen's parents, and my involvement was through their company, and Mr. and Mrs. Thorpe said, Julia, can you help? And they described what had happened to Stephen, and they said he's on a life support machine and they want to switch his life support machine off. And I said, well, I just listened really, and they said, Julia, but we feel as if he's in there and he's not dead, and they say, basically he's dead. And I said, well, look, I'll get someone to have a look at him. And I thought, how am I going to do this? So I rang Nottingham Queen's, and I spoke to somebody there, and one of the neurosurgeons, and they said, Julia, look, there are protocols for this, and basically 4 people have said Stephen's dead, then his parents must accept that. So I then rang another doctor, actually, that I knew, and who happened to be very, in fact, part of the team where Stephen was, and he said, Julia, I'll have a look, of course. So I said to Stephen's parents and to the ITU, don't do anything, because I want to get another opinion. I'm sorry about that, but I hope you don't mind, because obviously, given the situation, if it was your son and so on. And in fact, of course, that was the right thing to do, because Stephen is fine, and it wasn't the right decision and everything. Obviously, Stephen's here to tell the story.
I mean, you did bring in the assistance of other specialists, as you've said, but all through that process you came up against some quite considerable obstacles and protocols.
I don't like someone to say, no, something can't be done, do you know what I mean? And I always like to find other solutions, and that's how I run my practice. We're very holistic, we're always trying all sorts of things, aren't we, Stephen? Because we introduced a massage therapist right from day one to Stephen, so he could feel his body and be inspired by this wonderful person called Dee. So we always look for other solutions. That's the way I am, really. And also, I think it was to do with Stephen's parents, because I believed in them. I always believed that parents know best. Therefore, you need to listen to people's instincts.
Stephen, let's cut to the chase here. If it wasn't for Dr. Julia here, you probably wouldn't be here.
Everybody that I've seen through her has always been a gain to me. I've always had good outcomes from them. I'd seen, as Julia mentioned, Dee, a massage therapist, and I was seeing her nearly, I think, every day at the very early stages, and she made a massive difference with her. I think because it was a positive attitude from outside the family, coming from a different angle, and although my family had been very supportive and positive towards me, it was good to see it from other people around me, because
that really encouraged you, did it? Really helped you to keep pulling?
Well, for example, when I started back at working in Summerfield, just working 3 hours a week, this was quite soon after the accident, I think within 4 months, and I was working in there, and people I used to always have a chat to and speak to wouldn't really speak to me. They'd look at me and think, I had the impression that they didn't recognise me.
Okay.
And I found that very hard. But to have positive people around me within my family and everyone that I've seen through Julia, it's been really has helped.
That's quite interesting, isn't it? That you've noticed that people's reaction to you has changed since the accident.
Definitely.
And you've also highlighted that your left arm is you can't use that now. Initially, you certainly felt that made you feel like less of a person.
When I was aware my arm wasn't working, it was a very demotivating point to my life when it happened. But now I've just learned to deal with the loss of the arm, and I've got on with life. I play golf, I still go to the gym, all with one arm. I still work. I do, as far as I'm concerned now, I'm normal. I do things like everyone else does. I play golf, but I don't hit the ball quite as far as I used to. But I can still hit a nice steady shot.
Do you think some specialists are too quick to give up on their patients?
I think most care is absolutely excellent. I know it's difficult because we always need to use, you could say, evidence-based medicine. We need to protect people.
And it's understandable that there must be an element of that, because where do you draw the line otherwise? Absolutely. So one has to be very wise, I think. Okay. A lot of people after an accident like this say that their attitude to life changes quite considerably. You feel every day is precious. Is that something you felt?
I think it's essential to have positive people around you to help you progress.
Yeah, Stephen, thank you for coming in. It's been a pleasure to meet you. And Julia, your practice is in Stonygate, isn't it? And
Yes, Jane, it is. And we're a private practice, so I suppose, the good thing is that there's more time to try and deal with issues, medical issues, and to think a bit more laterally.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you both. Thank you both very much indeed for coming in. A quite incredible story, really and truly.